All right, welcome to another expert interview. We have a real fun topic today. This is probably one of the coolest business models I've seen, and Arian is an amazing person. So I'm sure we're gonna have a good conversation and a lot of directions we can go. As always, let's jump straight in. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Nice. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is super exciting. So, hi, my name's Arian Radmand. I'm the founder and CEO of IgnitePOST. And at IgnitePOST, we help brands create magic moments using real pen and ink handwritten notes. So, at our core, that's what we do, but the technology behind it is actually pretty awesome. Our company is part hardware, part software. So, on the hardware side, we actually have a fleet of handwriting robots that hold real Bic ballpoint pens and we'll write out real handwritten notes in an actual handwriting style. And then we have a nice software suite that allows brands to create kind of perfectly timed messages that get triggered exactly when they need them sent. So either a role-based or behavior-based or trigger-based messages. So that's the very quick overview of what we do. Lots of applications though.
For sure. I love it. Well, give us some backstory. Like, how did you end up here? Like, what's your journey?
Yeah. So my journey actually centers around this kind of idea of personalization. So it's funny, actually. So before I started IgnitePOST, I actually was co-founder of a business called CoachUp. And basically we were a sports private coaching marketplace. And that was very, very fundamental to us, right? Was we were a one-on-one private coaching connector. So we were connecting athletes and private coaches in about, you know, 50 different sports all across the nation. And the thesis there is that you improve the most when you are working individually one on one and you get to make mistakes, improve on those mistakes, and turn your weaknesses into strengths. And so that's kind of like the idea of like really personalization is kind of core to me even before IgnitePOST. And then with IgnitePOST, basically what I tried to do is before starting the business, I tried to think about, okay, if I'm a brand and I'm trying to, differentiate myself in the marketplace with all the other brands out there, and I tried to project, maybe 10 years down into the future. I said, as a brand, what am I going to do? How am I going to differentiate? And how am I going to, kind of win that battle of, getting people to come back and buy from me instead of somebody else? And so I took a look at the current landscape and saw that everybody was very inundated with a lot of digital marketing. So whether that was, too many emails, digital ads, push notifications on every device that we own. And I didn't see that as something that was ever going to slow down. If anything, it was only going to get worse. And so I said, all right, if I were a brand, what can I do at scale to really be able to, cut through this noise, develop real relationships with customers? What's going to be in my toolkit? And so that was the genesis behind the idea of IgnitePOST. And so that's why, we settled on, listen, the best thing you can do to connect with your customers and develop that relationship is connect with them on a personal level. And there's no other, deeper personal way than to be able to send a actual handwritten note to someone. And so that's kind of how we came up with the idea for IgnitePOST. And that's our general thesis is we enable brands to cut through the noise, create that magic moment, and develop deeper relationships, but to do it at scale. So that's kind of the full circle kind of, overall vision as to why we decided to do what we do and kind of how we got here in the actual solution that we have right now.
That's awesome. So I love that. I love that passion for personalization. And you're right. I was having a conversation last night about just the overwhelming amount of places you have to be and noise. And it's interesting because I received a handwritten card, and those are the things too that you can't see it, but I have a bulletin over to the right. And like they stay there, right? The thank you cards or the great meeting you, like those hang around, and those other messages don't. Like you get the notification, you're done, like that's it. So I love that. Can you talk about the launch phase of the business? I think it's interesting to take a moment to talk about hardware, software coming together and kind of what worked and didn't work in that process of your business launch.
Yeah, yeah. So, when we launched the business, actually the challenge was figuring out what we didn't want to do, right? Because the big challenge for us is when we took a look at what we were doing, almost any business out there, we could make an argument as, okay, this could be a good fit for your business. But like with anything, you can't boil the ocean, right? You need to start with like heating up a cup of tea, right? So that was like really the biggest challenge is for us to like not go after absolutely everything and kind of really figure out and dial in who is really our ideal customer, who can we really bring the most value to, and where can we like really position ourselves. And so starting the business, it was actually a lot of experimentation and working with a lot of different types of business across various industries and across different use cases. And what we found, because really we're a solution that you can put almost anywhere in the sales funnel. We have folks that use us for sales prospecting. We have people that use us for activation. We've got people that use us for retention and referrals and things like that. So for us, the challenge is really, let's figure out who we are best suited for so that we can really narrow down and kind of go after our ideal and best customers. So that's what we did when we started. So it was a lot of kind of figuring out what use cases were out there, what industries we should target. And what we did is we actually found rather quickly that although you can use us across the funnel, we typically play better in the middle to back half of the funnel. So if you see a lot of our communications now, we really bill ourselves as more of a retention tool. So we do have a lot of folks that use us for prospecting for sure, but where the product really shines is as a retention, referral, activation tool. And to really, and this is kind of why I opened by saying, we're really a solution that helps a brand create magic moments for their customers, because that's really where we can be the most impactful. And so there's a lot of experimentation up front with, working with businesses across industries. And then once we realized that actually started helping to shape the product. And so now, once we kind of made that decision and kind of understood where we could provide the most value, that shaped the product and what type of features we built, how it worked, where we wanted things to be very quick and easy and where we didn't want things to be quick and easy. So that was just kind of like some interesting learnings. But yeah, getting up and off the ground was basically just a lot of experimentation. And now it's continuing to experiment, but we're really kind of narrowing down, who is the best fit for IgnitePOST.
Love that. I love your analogy, right? Boiling the ocean, because it's true. I think when we start businesses, it's always like we're going to take everything and try everything, but the faster you can figure out your formula, the better. And so I love that. Talk to me about why handwritten. I know we've had a couple conversations there, but I think it's important to highlight that. Like, there's so much mail. We are heading
Yep.
into another election cycle, so get ready
Oh
for
yeah.
spam mail, right? But like, why the handwritten, and kind of why does your formula work?
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a big decision that we wanted to make as well. So we really wanted something that was going to deepen a relationship with someone, to really create that magic moment. And we felt that, there's a lot of mail out there, right? The direct mail industry is a huge, massive industry, but there's also a reputation of it being junk mail, right? Because most people open most of the direct mail that gets sent to them over the garbage. And it's just how fast can I, toss things and throw things out. So we wanted to differentiate by actually creating something that people would remember and keep around. Like you mentioned, next to you, you have a cork board, or on your desk, like things stick around. And in order to do that, you need to differentiate yourself somehow. So, when we took a look at the landscape, we took a look at direct mail. While it works and definitely has its place, we felt that wasn't really the thing that, would hit all the goals that we had and would really suit our mission of creating that magic moment, deepening a relationship, and really cutting through the noise. So that was kind of like one of the initial big things that we decided to do. Is we said we don't want to be direct mail, and actually to this day we really don't bill ourselves as direct mail because the product is so different. Going one step beyond that, there's also a lot of companies out there that will not only send direct mail, they'll send mail that looks handwritten. It'll basically be a printed font that comes out of a printer. And so again, we didn't want to go down that route either, because again, you're not developing that relationship, you're not creating that kind of magic moment that makes people want to keep that piece around and just keep it hanging around. So there's big differentiations between what we do and what I would kind of consider mass direct mail in the actual product. But then we actually look at the data, there's huge differences as well. So like I mentioned, the direct mail that you're used to getting, I think the oft quoted stat is about 20% of it gets thrown away without even being looked at or opened. I actually think it's higher, but that's the official quoted stat. For me, like I said, I open things over the garbage, and it's just how fast can I toss them? But when you send someone a handwritten card that arrives in the mail, almost no one takes it and tosses it immediately. So, the number one challenge with mail, with that channel, is, can you get somebody to actually give you the time of day and put eyeballs on it? as humans, we go and we check the mail, most folks on a daily basis. So, as long as you can get the address right, you're typically going to get it in someone's hands. But the biggest hurdle is, are they actually going to open it and give it the time of day? So that was kind of the biggest hurdle, and the data supports that. So not only does a lot of direct mail get thrown away, but we boast a 99% open rate because nobody throws away a handwritten note. They're at least going to look at it. And so then beyond that, it's just working with our customers and helping them provide some insight and examples as to what they can say, knowing that someone's actually going to put eyeballs on it. That's going to continue that relationship, deepen the relationship, and like really create that special moment that they're looking for.
I love that. And I still have the sample cards because I got one in every font so we could like really
Nice.
dive into their for which is great though. And I think that that is the cool customization part is you're creating this piece that shows someone spent time, but they actually didn't spend a ton of time because you've streamlined that, right? And the
Correct.
other thing I think that's interesting to note about what you're sending is you actually put stamps on the mail. Is that still true?
That's true. Yeah. So I can actually here, I've got a quick example that I can hold up. So when you send one of our pieces, this is what it looks like. So our standard is a 5x7 folded card that arrives in the mail. So yes, so a couple things influence all of the information that I just talked about, all the open rates and everything. So one, that it's actually handwritten. Two, that we use a ballpoint pen. So if you run your finger over this, you can actually feel the indentation. Three, it's in blue ink, not black ink. So that influences open rate as well because people can tell it didn't come out of a printer. We use an actual real stamp. So it's not a pre-sorted printed stamp. It's not pre-sorted mail. And then the size of it as well is invitation size, right? So 5x7, it's a non-standard, doesn't look like a bill. So somebody sees this, they open it. What we do is we give our customers full reign to put whatever they want on the front of the card. So you can upload any image you want. And then the inside, again, is all handwritten. And again, if you run your finger over this, you'll be able to actually feel that, okay, a pen actually scratched real words into this card. And so that gives it that authenticity. And it's interesting too, because the psychology behind this effort is one of the most interesting things, but I hear it talked about very rarely. But as humans, it's built into our DNA that we learn about our environment with tactile feedback. So by touching and holding things. So the easiest way to create a connection with someone is to actually send them something that they can touch and hold and feel. And when you do that, and there's actually a study, I think, done by the Journal of Vision that actually put a lot of tactile pieces in front of folks, and then actually found that the two groups, basically what they did is one group was able to actually touch and hold things. The other group just looked at various advertisements, and the group that actually was able to pick up and feel and interact with it ended up remembering what was said. They could recall it better, quicker, and retain the information longer. So as humans, it's kind of just built into our DNA. So anytime you're sending somebody something that they can actually interact with, it's unlocking something subconsciously in our DNA as human beings. It's kind of written in there as how we evolved over millennia, but you're kind of playing to that and unlocking subconsciously that in people's minds. That's like my inner science geek coming out. So I like that kind of stuff, but people don't talk about that a lot. But as humans, that's how we were built. Early humans learned about their environment by touching and interacting with it, and this kind of plays onto that. So there's a lot of different things that go on to why this technique is super effective.
I love it. I think there's a lot of takeaways if you think about marketing in general, about your touch points, your open rates, like how do we influence all of these moments? Because I do a lot in the relationship building side, and it's the same conversation. Like, let's redo your script so we stop selling on day one, and like let's work on value add and psychology and all these other things, because really that's what influences the outcome. And so I
Right.
love the granular level that you've gone to maximize. And I know you guys are always working because we talked about QR code integration and do you put something in the card, do you not? Like what's the
Yep.
so you're testing that and looking at how do we drive data? How do we track more detailed? And so I just think it's awesome if so you're out there and you're using some sort of card platform. Like I know I used a digital card platform for a long time where you type the message, hit send, and it sends like this textbook card with printed ink. And that was even better than sending nothing. But
Right.
with yours, like it's gonna get open to your point, because I know I open mail the same way, right? I walk down, I grab this stack, I walk
Yep.
in, I put it on the kitchen counter, I pull the trash can out, and it's like
Yeah.
rip, drop.
Totally. Yeah. It's a ritual too. It's funny, like people don't think about it, but it's a ritual. You know, like typically people they check the mail normally the same time every day. You have to physically go out and exert yourself, right? So like you physically go to the mailbox, you pick up your mail, you carry it in, you put it somewhere, normally in a high trafficked area. So, you know, there's a lot of exertion from a human standpoint that goes into actually getting and going through the mail. So the whole thing is if you're on the other end and you're actually sending something to someone, then it's worth it to put the extra effort in to make sure that that piece sticks around and is memorable.
So let's talk specifics in case someone's interested in your platform. And I think, it's important that we have some data in there. So are there minimums? Is your pricing per piece, or do you buy blocks? Like just kind of give us the rundown of what it would look like to join IgnitePOST.
Yeah, I'll give you the quick rundown. So, from a pricing standpoint, there's two ways that we price the service because we try to make it flexible and accessible to everyone. So, we either have pay as you go or prepaid. So, those are kind of the two options you have. If you want to go pay as you go, it works like a similar subscription. So, kind of think of like cell phone minutes. We have a couple different plans that you can sign up for. Typically starts at $89 a month, but you sign up for a plan, you have an allotment of cards that you can use during the month, and if you go over, similar to, cell phone minutes, there's a slight overage charge per piece for however many you went over. But there's no minimums. You can send one card, you can send zero cards, but it kind of is designed to be a plan that, fits your needs and can grow with you. So that's one option. And then the second option is for folks that are really looking to get the best per card rates. The way to do that is with our prepaid plans, which basically work like account credits. So you can pre-purchase a set number of cards, and then you can work through them at whatever cadence you want throughout the year. That typically starts if you're going to be sending at least or purchasing at least 2,000 letters at a time, and then working through them over the course of the year. So, and again, it kind of goes up from there, but that's kind of the general ways that we price the service. Um, Generally speaking, the cost is between $2 and $3 on the prepaid, depending on how much you're looking to send. All of our prices, by the way, are all inclusive of everything. So it includes your envelope, the actual card stock, the printing of whatever image you want. So you can create a custom image and put that on the front of the card. Obviously, the handwriting on both the card and the envelope. And it also includes the first class postage stamp, which gets affixed to the envelope. So, like I said before, it's not a pre-sorted stamp. It's not a printed stamp. So, and that all influences open rate.
Love that. And I think it's important for people to understand that. And that's why I asked. I usually we don't dive that deep into the product or the brand, but we
Yeah.
have to, because I think it's important for people to process, like, all right, if you want to go send thank you cards, right? Step one, you're going to drive down to pick a store. You're going to find some generic thank you cards. You're going to store them somewhere in your office. You're going to start writing and then realize you didn't have stamps. So then you're
Right.
either going to drive back to the store to get the stamps or go to the post office to drop them off, or if you have mail pickup, like there's so much friction. And what's so interesting
Totally.
about your price model is it's highly affordable when you think about all of the time investment, not to mention the fact that you are getting the card, the envelope, the stamp, the writing,
Right.
like and all these other things. And so I just want people to process that on any of our decision making, right? I think that's the takeaway from this is, like, if you're looking at the vendors you're spending money with, like it's more about your time, right? Like what is your time
Totally.
investment and what do you actually have to put into getting the outcome, versus is there a solution that can either automate it, streamline it, and in your point, it actually does everything better because it increases open
Right.
rates and does
Yeah.
all the other stuff.
Yeah. And the other interesting point as well is, like we said, the whole idea is to create this magic moment for customers. And so the way that we built the solution, especially on the software side, is it's really designed to complement your existing, marketing or sales strategy. So it's really designed to kind of be dropped in right alongside it. And that's really where you get the most amount of, impact. So to be able to drop it into a sequence so that somebody, based on their behavior, so let's say they maybe purchase something from your site, they get a nice follow-up handwritten card exactly, when the product is arriving, asking them for a review or asking them for a referral or kind of, whatever you need them to do. But it's that kind of combination. Part of it is sending something really personalized that's handwritten, but the other part of it is timing. And as either a business owner or as, any position, right? There's typically more valuable things you can do with your time than sit down and handwrite cards. But the timing aspect is super important, and that's what we allow you to do as well. So we can kind of drop things in right into your existing, automations and flows, so that you really do create this magic moment. It's interesting. I forget the name. I think it's called like peak event psychology theory, where basically, the whole concept is people can't remember everything. So when you're talking about a particular moment or particular event or something that someone goes to, they typically remember something if you give them a moment of very intense pleasure or something that's very intently memorable. And so the whole idea is, along the customer journey, is there somewhere that you can inject and put a moment of like super surprise and delight or intense pleasure, because that's what is going to stick in someone's mind and stick around and let them, recall your brand over and over again. So that's kind of like the whole idea, is it's designed to be complementary, and the timing piece is a big part of it.
Love that. So let's go one more specific, and then I want to talk about those different points and some case studies and what works, and just kind of give people ideas of those touch points. So turnaround time, if I log into your platform and I, type my message and hit send, what's the average turnaround time for that to be in the mail? And then, I mean, obviously we can't control the post office.
Yeah. We cannot control the post office. That is true. So what we do is we typically quote people and say your letter will be in the mail from whenever you hit send within 48 to 72 hours. In reality, we try to also surprise and delight folks. So in reality, it's actually typically close to 24 to 48 hours. So a lot of times if you go in and hit send, there's a good chance that the next day that letter is going out. So we try to, under promise and over deliver there.
That's awesome. And I love that idea because I'm already thinking through like ways I've advised people. Like if you're at a networking event, you're getting people's business cards and you're shooting them an email saying, hey, let's get together. But at the same time, that other letter is going out saying, hey, it was so great meeting you. I enjoyed. And then just one thing you remembered about them.
Yep.
Even if you end up in a meeting with them between, which probably isn't going to happen, you're not going to book a meeting
Right.
in 3 days. But like now you've got that second touch, which will trigger them to look at the email, right? So it kind of plays
Right.
together.
Totally. Totally.
So talk to me about some of the use cases and maybe let's break them down kind of one by one and maybe we'll ask some questions about it. So what's one that you see the highest use case and why?
Yeah. So like I said, the where we provide the most value typically tends to be on the back half of a funnel. So, I'll take examples from folks that are in e-commerce, right? That's one of our biggest verticals right now, is selling something online. Uh, in particular, one of the big things that folks are always trying to do is cultivate and develop that relationship, especially if you are an e-commerce brand and you're trying to humanize it a little bit. And, how do we connect and, connect the dots and make people, feel connected to the humans behind the brand? So that just as an overall strategy is something that we see a lot, and kind of the overall concept that people are interested in. But in that space, there's a lot of things that we do. So as you know, everything these days lives and dies based on reviews, right? That's the first thing everybody wants to read when you're thinking about trying out a new product, or when you find something new. It's like, well, what's everyone saying? I'm going to go read some reviews about this. So that's one of the most common use cases we see, is work with brands that, post purchase, after somebody makes their first purchase, they want them to have a good experience with the product, but they want them to come back and actually leave a review. So after the first purchase, they can set up a trigger so that automatically a handwritten card gets sent out by the owner or the founder of the brand saying, hey, Devin, hope you enjoyed using the product. Come back and leave us a review. That's where your point, where you can actually put a QR code on the front, right? So that somebody can come and actually scan a link to go back and actually leave a review exactly where you need them to leave a review. So that's a super common use case. Taking it one step further, there's a lot of brands out there that also offer this kind of concept of a subscription or a subscribe and save option. So that's actually one of the biggest use cases we also see. So, if I have a widget subscription and I want people to stay in my subscription for, as long as possible, typically I'll know, okay, maybe someone's in my subscription for, 6 months, and then that's my average churn point. So what we see a lot is behavior-based triggers set up. So I'll set up a trigger that says, okay, whenever someone's in my subscription for 5 months, automatically trigger this handwritten card and say, hey, Devin, thanks so much. Really enjoy having you as part of this community. Here's 10% off for your next 3 months, right? So you immediately jump them over the point where they would have churned, but give them a really positive experience that automatically keeps them in a subscription longer, increases your LTV, and earns you more revenue. So those are kind of, just very off the top of my head, like some quick, like pointed examples.
Well, it's awesome. And they're all things that are relevant, right? We're looking at lifetime value, right? Which is key, right? Can we keep them around
Correct.
longer? And what are the touch points? And I loved your idea of like, if you really know the data, like if I touch them at certain points, I give them discounts. That's huge. The reviews, massive, right? Everybody's reading
Right.
reviews, especially for digital products or, physical things you're buying, service related companies. It's the same way, right? If you finish
Totally.
a service, like there's a lot of automations for digital review. But what's the chance if we send them something physical too, and they go, you know what, I will take the time because the
Right.
owner took the time to write me a card. And I love that you said that too. It's awesome that the card can come from the owner founder because for bigger brands, the perception is, whoa, like the owner took time to send me a card. Like I'll take time to take whatever action because we have to remember that most consumers aren't as savvy as we think
Yeah.
they are.
Totally. Yeah. No. And we see that all the time. And so, again, it's all about, value being exchanged. And so, to your point, everything lives and dies on reviews. What's the value of a review? That's kind of typically how we like to position the service, because people ask me all the time, well, there's a lot of things I can do with this. What should I do? And, it all bubbles down to, well, where do you see value and where can we help you get more value from the areas that, you're trying to, increase and get more value out of.
Love that. And very strategic. I've appreciated that about you and your team when I talk to them is it's not just let's sign you up and start sending. It's like, no, let's actually talk about like what are your client touch points? What's your sales process? What's your cycle? And let's make sure we're getting the biggest impact. And I think
Totally.
that's really unique about your business and brand is that you are advising, right? You're providing some of that strategy that other brands aren't. There's no human touch.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that's core to our business too, right? I couldn't start a handwritten note company and then not also provide that, human touch to help develop the relationship even more. So for sure. And yeah, and that's one of the big things that we also offer. So in addition to just using our service, you can definitely use the service like a normal SaaS platform. You can log into the dashboard, set up automations, and that all works great. However, we also have an arm of the business that we call our managed services arm, which literally works like an agency on your behalf. So you can come to us and say, hey, I'm trying to get more reviews for this product, or hey, I need to, increase my customer retention, help me out. And we literally will craft the strategy for you that works alongside and complements your existing marketing and your existing efforts, using IgnitePOST, and help you hit whatever goals it is that you need to hit. So that's another option that we have. So, again, kind of all comes back to just how do we help folks be successful? Because if they're successful, they'll continue using us, but also their business will grow, which is ultimately what we want.
Love that. So let's talk trends. What's trending just kind of in marketing in general? Like what are you seeing? I know you're always studying stuff and paying attention. So what are you paying attention to right now in the marketing world?
Yeah. So, well, obviously, right now everyone's going crazy over Chat GPT and AI. I think that's really interesting. The interesting part is when we do the onboardings with our customers, the longest part by far is figuring out what they want to say in their card messages. So we have helped out a lot by just kind of providing some insights and examples. And if you kind of scour our sites, you'll see we have a lot of guides that are actually industry specific and then use case specific based on what industry you're in and what you're trying to do. Some examples of here are some templates that you can kind of follow and make your own. One of the biggest things that has improved that is layering on this AI layer where you can start with one of these templates and then give it some sentiments and actually have it really kind of create a really good piece of copy that you can then use in a handwritten note. That's really one of the coolest things that I've seen in a little bit. The biggest mistake that I typically see with customers is they'll want to take existing, sales copy or marketing copy and just kind of slap it in and as their message. And that just doesn't work because again, everything comes back to, you need to be more authentic. Like, put yourself in the shoes of the recipient. They're getting this really nice personalized handwritten note in the mail. You don't want to treat it as, let's just take our ad copy and throw it in here. You've got to, think about it a little bit more. But if you do, your impact is that much greater. So that's one of the big trends that we're seeing. And then overall, we've written about this before, but we really believe that we're kind of moving into this new era that at IgnitePOST, we call this the relationship centric era, where essentially every brand out there, it's going to become more and more important that they actually develop that relationship with their customers. Because let's face it, we're at a time now where almost any product or service out there, people have multiple choices as to, where they get to vote with their dollars and, what service they get to use. So if I'm a brand and I'm thinking, how do I build a big brand? It's by having first time customers become second time customers, and then second time customers become raving fans that use you again and again and refer you, et cetera. And the only way to do that is to actually, have some reason beyond what you're selling or price that keeps them coming back more and more. And the only thing that you can do to really influence that is to develop and cultivate that deeper relationship with your customer. And so that's why we're kind of, overall, we like to say there's this new era being ushered in called the relationship centric era, where you should really think about, how do you cultivate and develop that relationship with the customer? Because that is what ultimately will allow you to build a big brand.
Awesome, man. I love the AI thing. I mean, everyone, if you're not paying attention, go pay attention. Like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you probably need to read a few articles and just start looking at the case studies for your business or client cycle or sales cycles. There are probably ways it can streamline something you're doing. But again, make it personal. I think that's a good takeaway. There's a lot of
Totally.
easy automation that may not be personal. And so you got to make sure we're blending both. And then the relationship takeaway, I love that. Like, how can we deepen relationships, whether it's referral partners, in customers, new prospects? Like, how do we do that faster? And that's going to increase lifetime value because, to your point, it's so easy to consume now anywhere. And so if you're
Totally.
mad at a brand or something happens, like the chance that you're going to leave, it's pretty quick.
Right. Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Totally right. Hit the nail on the head there. So yeah. So those are kind of some of the major trends that I'm seeing right now. But I always like to keep my ear to the ground and see what else pops up too.
That's awesome. What's worked for you in building your business? So if you think about how you've grown, like what's worked?
I mean, honestly, early stage businesses, nothing works better than, personalized introductions and referrals. So that's where I would say anybody should start. So, if you can get a warm introduction or kind of a warm referral to anybody, that's worth more than any type of kind of prospecting or any type of marketing you can do. So that for sure has definitely worked for us. We're also a big proponent of eating our own dog food. So we actually use our own product a lot. So, if you go onto our site, like one of our main things that we say is, hey, we'll send you a sample. Like, let us know where you are and we'll mail you a sample. And so we do that. And then we also use our own product in our own outreach. So if we identify companies or individuals that would be a good fit, we proactively use IgnitePOST to send them handwritten notes to actually put the product in front of them. So, we're big proponents of like actually using what we've built and actually using our own product.
Awesome. And whatever platform you guys are listening to, below this, I'll include a link where you guys can go request a sample and get that sent out. I think there's no better way to experience this brand than actually getting a sample. Matter of fact, it's funny. I do this every time we're on. I still have them, right? Like they're still sitting
Nice.
here.
There
And
you go. Yeah.
it's great though, because I love when I'm meeting with people in market to talk about like, hey, like here's an example. And it's just real. So check that out. Also, whatever platform you're on, leave us a review, ask some questions, subscribe, like, all that helps us just keep creating content and support the people we're interviewing. And with that, Ariane, I'm going to move to the last two questions. So the first question I love to ask people is book recommendation. What do you love? What do you think people should read?
So my favorite book related to, business building is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Read that a while ago, but it's been instrumental in kind of helping me just kind of think about how to structure everything. So that's something that I recommend everybody read. If you want kind of to me, the lean startup method also is a really good book. Took a lot of the same concepts and maybe, transform them a little bit and kind of modernize them. But Yeah, those two in tandem, I think, are two of my big recommendations.
I love that. And if you are thinking of jumping, like if you're listening to this and you're the person that's the professional that's thinking of making the jump, E-Myth is always the book I tell people to read
Yeah,
because there's so much truth in being the doer versus working on the business and understanding the difference and the complexity of business. I love that recommendation. And then yeah, lean, anything you can look at that's system and process focused as you're launching. Great recommendation there. What's some advice you would give your younger self? If you look back at your journey, what's something you would tell the younger you?
I think everything takes longer to do than you expect. I think that's probably my general advice. I guess I could break it down as, you know, it takes twice as long and twice as much money to do half as much as you think you can do. And so just from like a setting expectations standpoint, I think something like that is something that it took me a little bit to, you know, mentally kind of figure that out and understand it. But two things. So one, helping from just like a planning standpoint, very helpful. But two, from just an expectation setting standpoint as well. And so I found earlier in my career, I would let myself get a little bit frustrated of like, why is this taking so long? Like there's something going on. Like, am I doing this wrong? And then, shifting my mind mentally to something like that helps me understand and think like, okay, no, it just it takes longer than you mentally think because there's always things that come up and it always takes longer, so just kind of mentally preparing things for that, and I felt that that's kind of helped me mentally the journey a lot.
Awesome advice. In the instant gratification era, I think it's super important advice, especially, I think if you're a younger individual, it's the world has taught you that you can get it quick. And in business, you're right. Like you're gonna bob and weave and you just gotta set the right expectations because you don't want to let yourself down. Uh,
Totally.
that's awesome advice. How do people connect with you? I mean, we'll have the link below so that they can request their card or check the brand out. If they want to talk to you direct or, what other ways can they reach out?
Yeah, so definitely, like, we can leave a link, and if you want, go request a sample card, we'll get that sent to you. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so I can leave my LinkedIn link as well. If you want to reach out to me, definitely just drop me an email, arian@ignitepost.com. That's probably the two easiest ways to get in touch with me directly.
Awesome. Anything we missed? Is there something we missed in this world of direct mail, marketing, sales, content? Like, is there anything else that you just feel like we should discuss before we wrap up?
I don't think so, because otherwise we'll be here for another couple hours. There's so many things you can go into. It's so deep, but I think we did a lot of, like, I think we covered a lot, right? Because we talked about the actual mail itself. We talked a little bit about the psychology behind it. We even touched on, a little bit of like our DNA and like our history of like why it works with humans so well. So I think we did a pretty good job of kind of covering everything.
Awesome. Well, Ariane, I appreciate you taking the time, man, and telling us about your awesome company, your story, and some great takeaways for people when they think about marketing, sales, and building relationships.
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.